In the glittering heart of a San Francisco gala, where crystal chandeliers cast dreams over silk gowns, Elizabeth Warrick, billionaire titan of Warrick Innovations, froze mid-step. A fleeting glimpse of two girls on a charity stage, twins, with her own emerald eyes, shattered a decade of buried grief. 10 years ago, her ex-husband, Dr. Nathan Pierce, swore her newborn daughters died, their cries silenced in a Seattle hospital. Now, those faces, alive and radiant, unraveled as lies. Her empire, built on steel and solitude, trembled as maternal instinct roared awake. Was this a cruel mirage, or had Nathan stolen her children, weaving a web of deception to bury her truth? Elizabeth's heart pounded with a vow. She would unearth the sinister secrets of Nathan's Pierce Foundation, no matter the cost. Each step toward those girls ignited a fire no boardroom could contain, a mother's relentless quest to reclaim her stolen heartbeats. The city's elite buzzed, oblivious to the storm brewing in her gaze. This was no longer about wealth or power, it was war. And Elizabeth Warrick, forged in loss, would tear down a decade of lies to bring her daughters home. 200 words. The glass walls of Warrick Innovations headquarters gleamed under Silicon Valley's relentless sun, a monument to Elizabeth Warrick's unyielding ambition. At 38, she was a billionaire CEO, her name etched on Forbes lists and whispered in tech circles with equal parts awe and fear. Her emerald eyes, sharp as cut glass, dissected quarterly reports with surgical precision on the 50th floor, where her mahogany desk commanded a view of Palo Alto's sprawling innovation hub. Elizabeth had transformed her father's failing startup into a $5 billion empire, pioneering AI-driven medical diagnostics. Yet, beneath her tailored black suits and flawless composure, a decade-old wound festered, one she buried under mergers and acquisitions. 10 years ago, she lost her twin daughters, and with them, the woman she once was. Elizabeth's office was a study in minimalism. No photos, no personal relics, only sleek monitors and a single orchid, its petals a stark white against the gray decor. Her assistant, Megan Riley, watched her with quiet concern, noting how Elizabeth's jaw tightened when emails about pediatric research grants arrived. She declined every invitation to children's charity events. Her excuses polished but curt. To the world, she was invincible, a woman who'd conquered Silicon Valley's male-dominated elite. But Megan saw the cracks, the sleeping pills in her drawer, the way her hands stilled when a child's laugh echoed from the street below. This morning, Elizabeth stood before her board, her voice slicing through the room like a blade. Our neural network patents will yield $1.2 billion this year, she declared, her gaze pinning 15 executives to their seats. They nodded, intimidated by the woman who'd tripled their market share in 5 years. Yet, as she presented projections, her mind drifted to a memory she'd locked away, a hospital room, sterile and cold, where hope had died. She shook it off, refocusing on revenue charts, but the ache in her chest stirred, unbidden. Her best friend, Claire Donovan, had seen the change years ago. Over coffee in a Palo Alto cafe, Claire, a corporate lawyer with a knack for blunt honesty, had pressed her. "You're surviving, Liz, not living. When did you last laugh, really laugh?" Elizabeth's response was clipped. Laughter doesn't close deals. But Claire's words lingered, a reminder of the vibrant college student who dreamed of a big family, not a corner office. That Elizabeth had vanished in 2015, replaced by a woman who measured her worth in stock prices. Her transformation began after the divorce, when she threw herself into Warrick Innovations. Work became her armor, shielding her from the grief that threatened to unravel her. She fired assistants who mentioned their kids, avoided company picnics with families, and once walked out of a meeting when a client's toddler babbled through a video call. Her empire grew, but her isolation deepened, a fortress built on the ashes of a life she buried. Now, as Elizabeth stared out at Silicon Valley's glittering sprawl, she felt the familiar weight of her loss. She'd learned to function, thrive, even by sealing her heart. But tonight, at a charity gala in San Francisco, a single moment would crack that seal wide open, forcing her to confront a truth she'd never dared imagine. Her daughters might still be alive, hidden in plain sight, and the man she'd once loved might be the monster who stole them. 600 words. 10 years ago, in the sterile glow of Seattle's Harborview Medical Center, Elizabeth Warrick's world collapsed. At 28, She lay exhausted in a delivery room, her body aching after 20 hours of labor. Her husband, Dr. Nathan Pierce, stood beside her in his crisp white coat, his handsome face a mask of what she mistook for concern. The pregnancy had been grueling: twins, early contractions, months of bed rest that tested her restless spirit. At 3:42 a.m., the first cry pierced the air, followed by a second, a chorus of life that filled Elizabeth's heart with uncontainable joy. "My girls," she whispered, reaching out, desperate to hold them. But Nathan's voice cut through. "There were complications, Elizabeth. Respiratory distress. They need the NICU immediately." Through a haze of exhaustion, she watched two tiny forms whisked away, their cries fading behind steel doors. Nathan's hand on her shoulder felt clinical, not comforting. "Will they be okay?" she pleaded, panic rising. He promised to monitor them, but his eyes avoided hers. The next 48 hours blurred: sedatives, medical jargon, and Nathan's assurances that the babies were receiving the best care. On the third morning, he entered her room with Dr. Laura Bennett, the attending obstetrician, whose red-rimmed eyes betrayed her composure. "Elizabeth," Nathan began, his voice detached. "The girls' lungs were too weak. They passed last night." The words stole her breath, her scream muffled by shock. "No, I heard them. Let me see them," she begged, but Nathan restrained her gently, citing trauma. "Seeing them now would break you," he said. Administering another sedative. Dr. Bennett hesitated, as if to speak, but Nathan dismissed her sharply. Weeks later, Elizabeth sank into a depression so profound she barely spoke. Nathan, now her caretaker, labeled her grief pathological, prescribing pills that dulled her questions. "You're showing signs of postpartum psychosis," he said, his tone patronizing. "Obsessing over death certificates isn't healthy." She clung to fragments, the memory of those cries, the way Dr. Bennett's gaze flickered with unease, Nathan's refusal to show her the bodies. By 2016, their marriage crumbled. Nathan suggested she focus on her father's struggling tech firm, claiming work might heal her. She complied, pouring her pain into Warrick Innovations. But the questions lingered. Why were there no graves? Why did Nathan evade her pleas for medical records? She buried her doubts, convincing herself they were delusions born of grief. Years later, in her Palo Alto penthouse, Elizabeth avoided the cardboard box labeled Baby Items EW. Inside were ultrasound photos, tiny pink hats she'd knitted, and hospital wristbands, relics of a life stolen. She'd built a fortress around her heart, but the pain never dulled. Claire once found her staring at the box, tears unshed. "You can't keep running from this," Claire said. Elizabeth's reply was sharp: "Running keeps me sane." Now, a decade later, as she prepared for the San Francisco gala, Elizabeth felt the familiar ache. She'd mastered the art of survival, sealing her past in that box. But tonight, a single image would rip it open, forcing her to face the possibility that Nathan's lies were far darker than she'd ever imagined. Her daughter's cries, once silenced, would echo again, demanding truth. And Elizabeth, no longer the broken mother of 2015, would answer with the ferocity of a woman who'd conquered empires. 600 words. The San Francisco gala glittered with opulence, its ballroom awash in champagne flutes and murmured deals. Elizabeth Warrick, resplendent in a midnight blue gown, navigated the crowd with practiced ease, her smile a calculated mask for Silicon Valley's elite. She was there to bolster Warrick Innovations' public image, a nod to her PR team's insistence on supporting pediatric charities. But her heart raced with unease. These events, with their family-focused rhetoric, always stirred the grief she buried. Megan had slipped the invitation onto her desk, and though Elizabeth wanted to decline, the promise of a new research division forced her hand. She hadn't expected the night to unravel her world. Midway through a toast, her eyes caught a digital display near the stage, a slideshow for the Pierce Foundation for Displaced Youth, Nathan's charity. A photo flickered. Two girls, about 10, with identical chestnut curls and emerald eyes that mirrored her own. Her glass trembled, wine sloshing onto her wrist. The girls' faces, framed by navy dresses, held a haunting familiarity. The curve of her nose, the stubborn tilt of her chin. Her breath hitched as the room spun, the chatter fading into a dull roar. Was this a cruel trick of memory, or something far darker? Elizabeth forced herself to focus, memorizing the slide's details. Sophie and Ava, Success Stories of the Pierce Foundation. Nathan's name, embossed in gold, mocked her from the screen. 10 years ago, he'd sworn her daughters were gone, their deaths a tragedy sealed by his word. Yet these girls, alive and radiant, were her features with undeniable clarity. Her CEO instincts, honed to detect deception in boardrooms, screamed that Nathan had lied. But how? Why? The questions clawed at her, each more terrifying than the last. She approached a foundation volunteer, her voice steady despite the storm within. "Tell me about Sophie and Ava," she said, feigning casual interest. The volunteer beamed, describing their rescue from unstable homes. They're thriving under Nathan's care in Oregon. The words "new identities" and "fresh starts" struck Elizabeth as oddly deliberate, clinical. Her mind raced back to Nathan's evasions in 2015, his refusal to provide medical records. Had he orchestrated a monstrous deception, stealing her children to fuel his so-called charity? Claire, mingling nearby, noticed Elizabeth's pallor and pulled her aside. "Liz, you look like you've seen a ghost." Elizabeth's whisper was fierce. "I think I have. Those girls, I think they're mine." Claire's eyes widened, but she didn't dismiss it. "If you're serious, we need proof. Nathan's powerful, and this is dangerous." Elizabeth nodded, her resolve hardening. She'd built an empire by trusting her instincts. She wouldn't ignore them now. Back at her penthouse, Elizabeth opened the forbidden box, her hands trembling as she sifted through ultrasound images. The profiles matched the girl's features with chilling precision. A memory surfaced, Nathan arguing with Dr. Bennett in the hospital corridor, his voice sharp about paperwork. She dismissed it as grief-fueled paranoia. Now, it felt like a clue to a crime. By dawn, Elizabeth dialed Daniel Holt, a private investigator Claire had recommended for corporate espionage. "I need you to dig into the Pierce Foundation," she said, her voice steel. "Start with its founder, my ex-husband." The gala's fleeting image had ignited a spark, and Elizabeth would fan it into a blaze to uncover the truth. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick's Palo Alto office transformed into a command center, its sterile calm shattered by her unyielding resolve. Across from her sat Daniel Holt, a former FBI agent whose weathered face bore the scars of truths unearthed in shadows. His notepad was ready as Elizabeth outlined her mission. Dissect the Pierce Foundation, Nathan's shadowy charity. "I need financials, operations, and details on two girls, Sophie and Ava," she said, her voice a blade honed by betrayal. Daniel's gaze sharpened. "This isn't just corporate vetting, is it?" Elizabeth's eyes, emerald and fierce, met his. "It's my daughters." Daniel's initial sweep of public records exposed cracks in the foundation's facade. Established in 2016, post-divorce, it reported $3 million in donations yearly but offered vague program descriptions. Its Oregon compound, a 300-acre fortress, was billed as a youth haven, yet lacked state oversight. "Real charities court transparency," Daniel said over a secure call from a Redwood City safe house. "This one's a vault. No adoptions publicized, no local ties." Elizabeth's heart raced. Nathan, a pediatrician with no prior child welfare experience, had built this operation with chilling precision. Deeper probes revealed the compound's defenses, electrified fences, surveillance drones. No neighbors within miles. "It's a black site, not a home," Daniel reported, laying satellite images on Elizabeth's desk. Her fingers traced the perimeter, imagining Sophie and Ava within. Financial records showed millions funneled to offshore accounts, masked as consulting fees. Elizabeth authorized bolder tactics, hacked communications, bribed insiders. Daniel's NSA contact intercepted emails between Nathan and an adoption lawyer, discussing clean identities and premium placements. The words turned her blood cold. Hospital records, obtained through a corrupt clerk, deepened the horror. Elizabeth's delivery file, signed only by Nathan, cited neonatal demise without corroboration. Dr. Laura Bennett, the obstetrician present, had fled to Singapore weeks later, abandoning her career. She was complicit or scared, Elizabeth whispered, clutching an ultrasound photo. Claire, reviewing the evidence, warned. Nathan's untouchable without hard proof. "We need DNA." Elizabeth greenlit a covert operation to extract samples from the compound, her billionaire resources funding cutting-edge tech. Megan, sensing Elizabeth's strain, lingered late. "You're burning out," she said, offering tea. Elizabeth's reply was iron. I'll rest when my girls are safe. Claire's legal counsel was stark. Nathan's got allies, cops, judges. One misstep, and we're exposed. Elizabeth's resolve didn't falter. She'd outmaneuvered tech titans, and Nathan was no exception. Alone at night, she studied Daniel's latest photo, Sophie and Ava, their faces hers, in the compound's sterile yard. Each clue confirmed Nathan's monstrous lie. He'd stolen her daughters, erasing them to feed his empire. The investigation was a tightrope. Daniel's team worked in shadows, evading Nathan's security. Elizabeth's empire funded drones, informants, and decryption. But her maternal instinct drove her. She recalled Nathan's cold assurances in 2015, his refusal to show her the bodies. Now, she saw his charity for what it was, a machine to harvest children. As evidence mounted, Elizabeth's purpose crystallized. She would tear down Nathan's lies, brick by brick, until her daughters were free. This was no longer a probe, it was a crusade. And Elizabeth Warrick, forged in grief, would wage it with unrelenting fury. 600 words. Daniel Holt's manila folder hit Elizabeth Warrick's desk with the weight of a verdict. Its contents unraveling a decade of lies. 3 weeks of covert operations had exposed the Pierce Foundation's core, a child trafficking ring cloaked in philanthropy. Elizabeth's hands shook as she read the dossier. Forged death certificates, encrypted ledgers, and drone-captured images of Sophie and Ava, her daughters, at the Oregon compound. The twins, now 10, were alive, raised as orphans, under Nathan's control, their identities erased. The truth struck like a physical blow. Nathan hadn't just lied about their deaths. He'd stolen their lives for profit. Daniel's voice was grim as he briefed her. The foundation's a pipeline. They've moved 18 children in 9 years, all adopted through black market channels. Your girls are still there. Not yet sold. Elizabeth stared at a photo. Sophie and Ava, their emerald eyes dulled by routine, marching under guard scrutiny. Their likeness to her was undeniable. But their joyless expression screamed of captivity. How many families? She asked, voice hollow. Daniel's reply was stark, 23. All told, their babies died under Nathan's care at Harborview. Medical records sealed the horror. Daniel's team had unearthed 15 death certificates, each signed solely by Nathan, citing respiratory failure without autopsies. Elizabeth's file was among them, her daughter's deaths fabricated with chilling precision. A memory resurfaced. Dr. Laura Bennett's hesitation in 2015. Her whispered protocol before Nathan silenced her. Elizabeth traced Bennett's path. Now a medical rep in Singapore, her career abandoned post-Seattle. She fled to save herself, Elizabeth murmured, clutching an ultrasound image, its profile matching Ava's. Claire, poring over the evidence, was blunt. This is kidnapping on an industrial scale. Nathan's got a network, corrupt nurses, offshore banks. We need DNA to nail him. Elizabeth funded a high-risk operation. A drone extracted hair samples from the compound's yard. The results, delivered in a sterile lab report, were definitive. Sophie and Ava were her biological daughters, 99.9% match. Tears fell as Elizabeth held the proof, rage eclipsing relief. Nathan had played God, ripping families apart. Megan, ever watchful, found Elizabeth staring at surveillance footage late one night. You need rest, she urged, setting down coffee. Elizabeth's eyes blazed. Rest is for when my girls are home. The footage showed Sophie and Ava in a classroom, reciting lessons with mechanical precision. No laughter, no spontaneity. Nathan's haven was a prison, brainwashing children to forget their roots. Elizabeth's nightmares shifted. No longer empty cribs, but her daughters calling a stranger mother. The foundation's scope was staggering. Nathan targeted desperate mothers, exploiting their trust to harvest newborns. Millions in donations fueled a global operation, selling children to elite buyers. Sophie and Ava remained at the compound, trophies of Nathan's control. Elizabeth's empire became her arsenal, funding hackers, informants, and legal teams. Claire warned, Nathan's allies are closing ranks. We're on borrowed time. Elizabeth's resolve was iron. She'd expose him, but first, she'd save her girls. As she studied Sophie's photo, a birthmark on her wrist, a crescent moon from Elizabeth's 7th-month ultrasound, sealed her certainty. Nathan's lies were a fortress, but Elizabeth's truth was a battering ram. She vowed to free her daughters, no matter the cost. The investigation was now a rescue mission, and Elizabeth, fueled by a mother's love, would burn Nathan's empire to the ground to bring her children home. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick's pulse thundered as an encrypted message from Daniel Holt flashed on her secure phone at 2 a.m. We've been compromised. Meet now. Oakland warehouse. Her Palo Alto penthouse, once a sanctuary, felt exposed as she slipped into dark clothing and drove through fog-shrouded streets. A whistleblower within Nathan's network had leaked their investigation, alerting his inner circle. Nathan's security team, now hunting Elizabeth, had dispatched enforcers to silence her. The stakes, already sky-high, had escalated into a deadly game where one misstep could cost her daughter's lives. At the warehouse, Daniel's face was taut, his voice low. Our NSA contact was tailed after accessing Nathan's server. The whistleblower, a nurse, Karen Tate, says Nathan knows you're digging. He's moving Sophie and Ava tonight. Elizabeth's heart seized. The girls, her lifeline, were slipping away. Karen, risking her life, had smuggled out a memo detailing Nathan's plan to relocate the twins to an offshore buyer. He's panicking, Daniel said, spreading blueprints of the Oregon compound. But that makes him dangerous. His enforcers are ex-military, well-funded. Elizabeth's billionaire instincts kicked in. We outmaneuver him. Get me Karen. Karen, trembling in a safe house, revealed Nathan's ruthlessness. He threatened my family when I questioned a stillbirth in 2017, she whispered. He's got cops on payroll, even a judge. Her intel confirmed Nathan's plan. A private jet at midnight, destination unknown. Elizabeth's mind raced. She'd faced corporate sharks, but this was a predator of a different breed. She authorized Daniel to deploy a tactical team to intercept the transport, her empire's wealth funding mercenaries and tech to rival Nathan's defenses. Claire, woken by Elizabeth's urgent call, arrived with legal firepower. If we act without proof, Nathan's allies will bury us, she warned. Elizabeth's reply was ice. I'm not losing them again. She funded a decoy operation to distract Nathan's enforcers, planting false intel about a raid on his Seattle office. Meanwhile, Daniel's team hacked the compound's cameras, catching Sophie and Ava being hustled into a van at dusk. Elizabeth watched the grainy feed, her nails digging into her palms, their frightened faces fueling her resolve. Megan, loyal but shaken, insisted on helping. I've got contacts in Portland, ex-cops who owe me, she offered. Elizabeth hesitated, then nodded. Every ally counted. But danger closed in. As Elizabeth left the warehouse, a black SUV tailed her, its headlights predatory in the fog. She evaded them through Oakland's back streets, her heart pounding, knowing Nathan's reach was vast. A narrow escape, but it sharpened her focus. She was no longer just a CEO, she was a mother fighting for her children. Back in her office, Elizabeth pored over Karen's memo, cross-referencing it with Daniel's intel. Nathan's network was unraveling, but his desperation made him lethal. She recalled his cold detachment in 2015, labeling her grief psychosis. Now, she saw his empire for what it was. A machine built on stolen lives, with her daughters as its crown jewels. As dawn broke, Daniel confirmed the van's route. Interstate 5, heading north. Elizabeth's plan solidified. Intercept the transport, secure her girls, then expose Nathan publicly. The leak had raised the stakes, but it also exposed his vulnerabilities. Elizabeth, forged in loss, would exploit them ruthlessly, her love for Sophie and Ava a weapon no enforcer could match. The clock was ticking, and she was ready to strike. 600 words. The San Francisco gala pulsed with extravagance, its chandeliers casting a golden glow over Silicon Valley's elite. Elizabeth Warrick entered in a crimson gown, her composure a steel mask honed by a decade of boardroom battles. Tonight, at the Fairmont Hotel, she would dismantle Nathan Pierce's empire before an audience of philanthropists and power brokers. Daniel's tactical team had failed to intercept Sophie and Ava's transport. Nathan's decoy vans outsmarted them, but Elizabeth's evidence was airtight. DNA reports, forged records, and Karen's testimony. Armed with truth, she was ready to strike. Nathan stood at the podium, his silver hair glinting as he spun tales of the Pierce Foundation's miracles. His voice, smooth and paternal, praised displaced youth given new lives. Elizabeth's stomach churned. Those new lives were stolen, her daughters among them. She spotted Sophie and Ava on stage, their navy dresses crisp, their smiles rehearsed. Ava's crescent moon birthmark, visible on her wrist, was a beacon of truth. Elizabeth's heart ached, but her resolve was iron. She'd planned this confrontation with surgical precision, her allies Claire, Daniel, and Detective Rachel Vaughn positioned strategically. As Nathan invited questions, Elizabeth rose, her voice cutting through the ballroom like a blade. "Dr. Pierce, how do you define displaced?" she asked, stepping into the spotlight. Nathan's smile faltered, his eyes flickering with recognition. "Mrs. Warrick, perhaps we could discuss privately," he stammered, but she pressed on, holding up a manila folder. "I'm curious about Sophie and Ava, born October 3rd, 2015, declared dead by you. Yet standing here." Gasps rippled through the crowd as she projected ultrasound images beside recent photos, their likeness undeniable. Nathan's face drained of color. "Those children are orphans." "Legally placed," he protested, but his voice cracked. Elizabeth's voice rose, fierce with righteous fury. "DNA proves they're my daughters, stolen by your foundation's trafficking ring." She displayed the lab report, its 99.9% match glaring. Detective Vaughn stepped forward, badge gleaming. "Dr. Pierce, we're investigating 23 families with similar claims," she announced, her presence amplifying Elizabeth's accusations. The audience, once enthralled by Nathan, now whispered in shock. Nathan's facade crumbled. "You were unstable, Elizabeth. They needed better lives," he shouted, his arrogance bared. The admission was a spark to Elizabeth's rage. "You played God, stealing children and calling it charity," she countered, her voice echoing. Security flanked Nathan, but he lunged for the folder, only to be restrained. Claire, at Elizabeth's side, murmured, "We've got him." Daniel's nod confirmed. The press, tipped off, was live-streaming the confrontation, ensuring Nathan's fall was public. Sophie and Ava, frozen on stage, stared at Elizabeth, confusion in their eyes. Her heart broke, but she met their gaze, willing them to feel her love. Nathan's allies in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, their influence waning as Rachel outlined charges: kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy. Elizabeth's evidence, medical forgeries, offshore accounts, painted a damning picture. As Nathan was led away, his eyes met hers, a mix of defiance and defeat. "This isn't over," he hissed. Elizabeth's reply was steel. "For you, it is." The gala dissolved into chaos, but Elizabeth stood tall, her mission half complete. Nathan's empire was shattered, but her daughters remained strangers, brainwashed by his lies. As she left the stage, Claire squeezed her hand. "You did it, Liz." Elizabeth's eyes lingered on Sophie and Ava, now in social workers' care. The war was won, but the reunion loomed. And she would fight for their hearts with the same ferocity. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick stood in her Palo Alto office, the city's skyline a distant blur as Nathan Pierce's arrest dominated headlines. The gala's fallout was seismic. 23 families had come forward, their stories mirroring hers, newborns declared dead under Nathan's care, their grief weaponized to silence them. Detective Rachel Vaughn's team uncovered a sprawling network, bribed nurses, forged documents, and offshore accounts funneling millions. Nathan faced charges of kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy, his empire crumbling under the weight of Elizabeth's evidence. Yet, a sting of betrayal sharpened her triumph. A trusted ally had nearly derailed her mission. Claire Donovan, Elizabeth's confidant, had been leaking intel to Nathan's lawyer. Swayed by a promise of leniency for her brother, entangled in Nathan's financial web. The revelation came via Daniel Holt, who traced encrypted emails to Claire's firm. Elizabeth confronted her in a Menlo Park cafe, her voice low but lethal. "You sold me out, Claire. My daughter's lives for what a deal." Claire's tears fell, her apology faltering. "I thought I could save him without hurting you." Elizabeth's heart hardened. She severed their bond, but Claire's legal acumen had already bolstered the case against Nathan. Rachel's investigation exposed Nathan's audacity. He targeted vulnerable mothers, falsifying deaths to harvest their children for elite buyers. Sophie and Ava, spared from sale, were trophies of his control, raised to idolize him. Karen Tate's testimony, smuggled from hiding, detailed Nathan's threats to silence doubters. Elizabeth's DNA evidence, paired with medical forgeries, was irrefutable. Nathan's trial loomed, but his allies, a corrupt judge, 2 cops, were arrested, their influence shattered by Rachel's task force. The press hailed Elizabeth as a crusader, but she felt no victory, only resolve to reclaim her girls. Megan, steadfast, coordinated with social workers to protect Sophie and Ava, now in foster care. "They're safe, but confused," she reported, her voice soft. Elizabeth nodded, haunted by their gala stares, her eyes in their faces, yet no recognition. Daniel's final report detailed the compound's horrors. Children drilled in obedience, their pasts erased. Elizabeth's nightmares grew vivid. Sophie and Ava calling Nathan father. Her empire's wealth funded therapy for the twins, but their trust remained a distant prize. The betrayal by Claire cut deep, echoing Nathan's manipulation. Elizabeth recalled their college days. Claire's laughter a balm to her ambition. Now, that trust was ash, but it steeled her purpose. She met Rachel at Oakland's precinct, reviewing evidence, 18 children traced. The scope of Nathan's crimes, 43 families torn apart, fueled her next step, a foundation to find the rest. Alone at night, Elizabeth studied Sophie's ultrasound. The crescent moon birthmark a talisman. Claire's betrayal had nearly cost her everything, but it taught her resilience. Nathan's arrest was justice, but not closure. Sophie and Ava, brainwashed to fear their true mother, were her final battle. Elizabeth's empire had toppled a monster, but her heart demanded more, her daughter's love. As dawn broke, she vowed to rebuild their bond, no matter the years stolen. The pain of betrayal forged her anew, a mother whose love would conquer even the deepest lies. Justice was served, but her crusade for family was just beginning. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick sat in a sterile Oakland family center, her hands trembling as she awaited the moment she'd fought for. Meeting Sophie and Ava, her daughters, stolen a decade ago. The room, with its pastel walls and plastic chairs, felt too small for the weight of 10 lost years. Dr. Emily Carter, a child psychologist. Elizabeth's heart raced, but her resolve, forged through Nathan's arrest, was unshakable. The door opened, and Sophie and Ava entered, flanked by social workers. Their chestnut curls and emerald eyes were hers, but their wary gazes pierced her soul. Sophie clutched Ava's hand, her crescent moon birthmark a quiet proof of their bond. Elizabeth smiled, tears brimming, and spoke softly. "I'm Elizabeth. I've been looking for you since the day you were born." Ava, bolder, frowned. "Dr. Pierce said our mom didn't want us, that she was sick." The words cut, echoing Nathan's lies, but Elizabeth stayed calm, her voice steady. Dr. Carter nodded, encouraging her. Elizabeth pulled out ultrasound photos, their profiles clear. "These are you. Before you were born. I carried you for 8 months, dreaming of your names, Emma and Lily." Sophie's eyes widened at the images, her fingers tracing the crescent moon mark. "That's my birthmark," she whispered, doubt flickering. Elizabeth's heart swelled. "It showed up in my 7th-month scan. I called it your star." Ava hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you find us sooner?" The question was a dagger, but Elizabeth answered truthfully. "I believed Nathan when he said you died," she said, her voice breaking. "I grieved every day, building my company to survive the pain. But I never stopped loving you." She offered a pink hat, knitted during her pregnancy. Sophie touched it, her guard softening. Megan, watching from the corner, wiped tears away, her loyalty a quiet anchor. Dr. Carter guided the twins to sit, explaining Nathan's deception gently. "Elizabeth never gave you up. She fought to bring you back." The twins exchanged glances, their twin bond palpable. Ava spoke, voice small. "You look like us." Elizabeth nodded, tears falling. "You have my eyes, your grandpa's smile. I named you Emma for hope, Lily for peace." Sophie, Emma, shifted closer, studying her face. "Can we try calling you Mom?" The word, fragile but real, shattered Elizabeth's walls. "Yes, sweethearts," she whispered, her voice thick. "Whenever you're ready." The session ended too soon, but progress was made. Outside, Rachel Vaughn updated Elizabeth. Nathan's life sentence was finalized, his network dismantled. "You've given 12 families closure," she said. Elizabeth's focus remained on her girls, now in therapy to unlearn Nathan's lies. Megan coordinated visits, her Portland contacts ensuring their safety. Elizabeth's penthouse, once barren, now held drawings from the twins, signs of a bond forming. Alone, Elizabeth clutched the ultrasound, replaying Emma's question. Healing would take years, but each visit rebuilt trust. She'd faced betrayal, danger, and loss, but her daughter's tentative smiles were her victory. As she looked at San Francisco's lights, Elizabeth vowed to nurture their love, no matter the time needed. The reunion was just the beginning, and she would fight for their hearts with a mother's eternal strength. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick stood in her new Marin County home, its sunlit rooms alive with the chaos of family. Emma and Lily, now 11, filled the space with laughter, their chestnut curls bouncing as they played soccer in the backyard. 6 months after their reunion, the twins had reclaimed their birth names, their bond with Elizabeth growing through therapy and time. Nathan Pierce's life sentence, coupled with the dismantling of his trafficking ring, had freed 18 children, 12 reunited with families. Elizabeth's pain had birthed a new purpose, the Warrick Alliance for Stolen Children, a foundation to ensure no family endured her nightmare. The Alliance, headquartered in San Francisco, was Elizabeth's empire reborn. Her tech wealth funded investigators, lawyers, and therapists, tracing 25 more children from Nathan's network. Emma and Lily, now vocal advocates, helped design its logo, a crescent moon, their birthmark's echo. "Mom," Mrs. Garcia called, Lily announced, reviewing case files at the kitchen island. "Her son's coming home tomorrow." Elizabeth smiled, marveling at her daughter's resilience. The Alliance had exposed 2 illegal adoption rings, its scope rivaling her former tech giant, Warrick Innovations. Megan, now the Alliance's operations chief, coordinated global efforts. "We've got leads in Brazil," she reported, her Portland contacts proving invaluable. Rachel Vaughn, promoted to captain, partnered with the Alliance, her task force targeting traffickers. "Your work's saving lives," she told Elizabeth at a Marin fundraiser. Elizabeth's reply was humble. "It's for Emma and Lily." Yet, the twins' pride in their mother's crusade was evident. Emma, sketching in the living room, said, "You're like a superhero, Mom." Elizabeth's heart swelled, but scars lingered. Claire's betrayal still stung, though Elizabeth had forgiven her silently, understanding desperation's pull. Daniel Holt, now a consultant, trained Alliance investigators, his grit shaping its mission. Karen Tate, out of hiding, testified at trials, her courage inspiring Elizabeth. The Marin home, once a blank canvas, now held Emma's paintings and Lily's soccer trophies, symbols of a family rebuilt. Elizabeth's nightmares faded, replaced by dreams of her girl's future, college, love, freedom. At a backyard ceremony, the twins planted 2 oak trees, their roots symbolizing permanence. "We picked this spot so you see them every morning," Lily said, handing Elizabeth a shovel. Emma added, "It's like us, growing strong." Elizabeth knelt, dirt under her nails, tears mingling with soil. "You're my strength," she said, pulling them close. The Alliance's work was relentless, but these moments grounded her. Nathan's crimes, 43 families torn apart, fueled her drive to reunite the rest. The press called Elizabeth a titan, but she saw herself as a mother first. At night, she studied case files, Emma's drawings beside her. Lily's question at the ceremony lingered. "Will we always remember being apart?" Elizabeth's answer was soft. "Only the love matters now." The Alliance's legacy was her daughter's future, free from Nathan's shadow. As fireflies danced around the oaks, Elizabeth vowed to keep fighting, ensuring every stolen child found home. Her journey, loss, betrayal, triumph, had forged a new Elizabeth. The Alliance wasn't just justice, it was hope, a beacon for shattered families. Emma and Lily, once Sophie and Ava, were her miracles, their love her greatest victory. As Marin's stars shone, Elizabeth knew her legacy would endure, rooted in a mother's unbreakable will to reclaim what was stolen. The fight continued. But with her daughters by her side, she was unstoppable. 600 words. Elizabeth Warrick's journey through a decade of lies, betrayal, and triumph reveals a timeless truth. Love and determination can shatter even the darkest deceptions. Her relentless pursuit of Sophie and Ava, renamed Emma and Lily, proved that a mother's bond transcends time, manipulation, and loss. Nathan Pierce's monstrous empire, built on stolen children, crumbled under her resolve, showing that truth, though buried, always surfaces when fought for with unwavering courage. Elizabeth's transformation from a grieving mother to a crusader for justice teaches us that pain, when channeled, becomes purpose. Her story reminds us that families, though broken by evil, can heal through love's persistence, and that no lie is too deep to be unearthed by a heart that refuses to surrender. This lesson extends beyond her victory. The Warrick Alliance for Stolen Children, born from her anguish, stands as a beacon for countless families torn apart by trafficking and deceit. Elizabeth's courage inspires us to confront our own truths, to fight for those we love, and to rebuild what was stolen. Her daughter's laughter, once silenced, now echoes as a testament to resilience, urging us to protect the vulnerable and seek justice, no matter the cost. Love, she learned, is an unbreakable force, stronger than any empire built on lies. Let Elizabeth's story ignite your own resolve. Share your experiences of resilience, how you've overcome loss or fought for truth, on platforms like X, inspiring others to persevere. Support organizations like the Warrick Alliance or local anti-trafficking groups through donations or volunteer work. Advocate for stronger laws to protect children, ensuring no family endures Elizabeth's pain. Together, we can reunite stolen hearts and heal broken bonds, building a world where love triumphs over deceit. Act now. Your voice, your action, can restore hope to those still searching for their miracles. For 100 words,